What was up with WCW's Uncensored shows? We have all sat through pay-per-views that weren't good, and trust me, I know a thing or two about coming away from wrestling shows feeling a bit deflated. I spent years doing it for this very channel. My therapist says I'm making progress, but obviously diving back into the WCW archives means I'm a glutton for punishment. Thing is, somehow, WCW Uncensored shows always managed to feature a match or multiple matches that were so bad it made you question why you watch wrestling in the first place. It takes a truly special level of booking and competence to make a paying customer sit in the dark, stare at a screen, and wonder if they should have taken up a much more sensible hobby like stamp collecting or tax preparation instead. It wasn't just once or twice over a few shows, it happened on every single WCW Uncensored event like some sort of in-joke, some sort of weird form of self-sabotage that makes the events live on in infamy for all the wrong reasons. The original idea behind Uncensored was that, in storyline, the board of directors had nothing to do with what went down at the shows. They washed their filthy hands of the events, which meant every bout on the card was effectively unsanctioned. This concept would begin to wind down as the years went on, but in reality, all it meant really was that Uncensored shows were heavy on gimmick matches. This idea, on paper, is a good one in my opinion, but right from the get-go, right from the first match ever presented at Uncensored 95, fans got to see what these shows were really all about. With all the hype that surrounded the first Uncensored, you'd be forgiven for thinking WCW was going to attempt something similar to ECW. It was promoted to be a show that was unsanctioned, unauthorized, and unbelievable, but in reality, it was probably best described as unacceptable, unappealing, and unwatchable. To show that this was a trend that continued throughout every Uncensored show, I'm going to show you at least 2 matches from every event and we'll do it in chronological order. So sit back, grab a drink, preferably a strong one like petrol, and let's go all the way back to Uncensored 1995. As mentioned, the first match that ever took place at Uncensored really did set the tone for what was to come. It's the King of the Road match between the Blacktop Bully and Dustin Rhodes. This match was pre-taped, the boys fought on the back of a moving 18-wheeler, and while the idea sounds good in theory, the execution was really poor. The guys had to sound a horn placed at the top of the trailer's cage in order to win the match, and basically, you've got 2 guys frolicking around in the hay while trying to maintain their balance for nearly 15 minutes. The match was actually edited quite heavily. WCW had a no blood policy, and because Dustin and Blacktop Bully bladed, the higher ups in WCW decided to fire both men and Dusty Rhodes for booking the match. This makes absolutely no sense when you consider the match was pre-taped, and if WCW really wanted to, they could have edited out every side of blood, or they could save the jobs of long-standing employees by not airing the match at all. But I guess that wasn't an option, seeing as the match was advertised. It definitely could have been edited down more to cut out the blood though. The official match runtime is 13 minutes and 6 seconds, and that's already about 10 minutes too long for this kind of bout. When you think of martial arts and the discipline necessary to study your choice in the martial arts, you most definitely think of Hacksaw Jim Duggan, a man whose technical mastery of the martial arts begins and ends with striking his opponent with a piece of timber he found behind a Home Depot. Jim Duggan took on Ming in a special martial arts match refereed by Sonny Ono at Uncensored 95. Colonel Robert Parker caused a distraction that allowed Ming to pick up the victory, and the match was terrible. Remember, this was promoted as being unsanctioned and unauthorized. It sounded like it was going to be a gritty extreme pay-per-view, and here's Jim Duggan doing usual Jim Duggan things in a martial arts match. Has there ever been a boxing match in pro wrestling that's actually been good? No, and you can talk about Mr. T and Roddy Piper all you want because that sucked too. This one was weird because the boxer, Johnny B. Bad, had to win via knockout while Arn Anderson, the wrestler, could only win via pinfall or submission. It begs the question then, what happens if Anderson delivers a move that knocks Johnny out? If Arn knocks Johnny out, does he have to wake him up just to pin him? Does the referee have to check Johnny's pulse or just count to 3 while Arn lays on his chest like a dead walrus? Don't worry, WCW weren't thinking about loopholes. Johnny won the match at round 4 and the crowd didn't care, opting to fall into a mild coma instead. The whole selling point of the first Uncensored show was the fact that there were no rules. This event wasn't sanctioned, it was a free-for-all where anything goes. So why did Avalanche get disqualified in his match against Randy Savage when Ric Flair appeared? Ric Flair, dressed up like a woman, attacked the Macho Man from the crowd and the referee decided to ring the bell. So WCW lied in their promotional material while hyping up the first Uncensored show. Thank you very much. Weapons are fine, but the Nature Boy in drag is where we draw the line. Oh, my editor and I joke about Uncensored 96 quite a bit because we always think we're done with it and then I write a script that somehow features it again. You know exactly what I'm talking about and you know what I'm going to bring up, but first let's talk about the Booty Man versus Diamond Dallas Page. If DDP lost, he'd be forced to retire, so that's a problem right from the get-go. And also, this was promoted as an I Quit match. Fans maybe expected it to play out like a typical I Quit match where it's submission only and you gotta say the words I quit into a microphone, like, you know, every other match that's ever been billed as an I Quit match in history. But no, the Booty Man won this match via pinfall. Now, to be fair, I think they called it an I Quit match due to the fact that Dallas had to quit wrestling altogether if he lost. It says right here, I quit wrestling match, which, okay, yeah, you got me. But then again, Booty Man didn't have to quit wrestling if he lost the match, which honestly would have been the best outcome we could have hoped for. If DDP won, he'd get Kimberly back as his manager, so he did have something to gain from this bout. So don't fucking call it an I Quit match, call it career versus manager or something like that, I don't know. DDP did not retire after losing, but that shouldn't surprise anyone. The stipulation should have been, if Booty Man loses, he has to go away forever. If he wins, he still has to go away forever. Win-win. Here it is, and I've brought this up so many times that I really don't know what to say anymore. The structure looks good, the Doomsday cage looks colossal, a magnificent piece of engineering indeed, but it's just a shame they forgot to put a wrestling match inside of it. It's one of those curiosity matches that everyone should still watch just for the sake of it, but it's still terrible. The Doomsday cage is the ultimate Hulk Hogan ego stroke. He and his Megapowers buddy Randy Savage managed to defeat 8 opponents including Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Lex Luger, Zeus, now known as Z Gangsta, and the Ultimate Solution. I especially like the part where Randy Savage remembered he had to pin someone in order to win the match, so he rushes back in after leaving the cage just to cover Ric Flair. Nothing says unprecedented cage warfare quite like suddenly remembering standard textbook wrestling logic in the final 10 seconds of the bout. After the match, Tony Schiavone stands there completely confused about his entire life. Bobby Heenan also wonders if it's too late to go back to the WWF. These men just witnessed a crime. Uncensored 97 has a great opening match where Dean Malenko takes on Eddie Guerrero, but after this bout, it all goes downhill. The semi-main event of this show features Prince Iaukea defending his TV title against Rey Mysterio Jr. And at the time, it was reported that Eric Bischoff put the TV title on Prince Iaukea as a way to counter The Rock becoming Intercontinental Champion over on WWF. Kinda like, whatever you can do, I can do better. Only Eric forgot that Prince Iaukea was still green as grass. Rocky Maivia won the IC title a few weeks before Prince Iaukea was given the TV title, and do remember that this could all just be coincidental. People could have been drawing their own conclusions here, and it could merely be fans seeing something that really wasn't there. But it's also something you wouldn't put past Eric, seeing as his ego was completely malfunctioning during this era of WCW. Prince Iaukea was not where he needed to be, and I say that in the nicest way possible. I watched every match he competed in on WCW Nitro and on pay-per-view, and during Reliving the War, I was actually gobsmacked that he got as much TV time as he actually did. He botched moves, his timing wasn't great, and he absolutely relied on others to help him through his matches. So he never should have been in the semi-main event of a WCW pay-per-view wrestling for 15 minutes. Rey Mysterio's awesome, we all know Rey Mysterio's awesome, but he had his work cut out for him at Uncensored 97, and unfortunately, the match wasn't that good. The crowd was dead throughout, which didn't fare well for the main event. This one had one of the most unnecessary, convoluted build-ups I've ever witnessed in pro wrestling, and it's really the build-up that lets the whole match down. WCW, the NWO and Roddy Piper were going to form teams for a triangle elimination match. If Team WCW won, the NWO wouldn't be allowed to wrestle for 3 years. If Team Piper won, then the Hot Rod would get a cage match against Hogan at an unspecified date. And if the NWO won, they'd get a shot at any WCW championship they so desired. Immediately then, we know Team WCW isn't going to win because no way in hell are Hall, Nash and Hogan getting paid for 3 years to sit on their asses. Before these stipulations were added, we got really confused by contradictions made on TV. For example, Lex Luger flat out said every WCW title would be on the line in this uncensored main event, and Bischoff said, and I quote, "It's the NWO belts versus the future of WCW." Then the WCW committee said the match was off, it was back on again, and all this was before Roddy Piper picked his team on Nitro. Piper beat up a few nobodies on TV to see if they were worthy of joining his crew. I always mention that Big John Tenta was among these J-Brones, and Big John Tenta is certainly not a J-Brone. But on the grand scheme of things, Piper's final selection did not look competitive at all going up against Team WCW and the NWO. Piper's gauntlet match on Nitro to pick his team went on for way too long and it got a lot of negative feedback. So the following week, his boys were replaced by members of the Four Horsemen, which must have been a huge blow to the egos of this guy and whoever this guy is. Add in the fact that Rick Steiner of Team WCW got injured, and so WCW squad only had 3 guys instead of 4. Add in the fact that Dennis Rodman's guest appearance was promoted just as much as the match itself. And add in the fact that the main event was a chaotic mess, and you've got yourself quite the shit show at Uncensored 97. The NWO won. They now had a title match in their back pocket for any time and any place. You want to know how they used this title shot? Well, Randy Savage, the Macho Man himself, challenged Prince Iaukea for the TV title, and in the end, Prince Iaukea walked away still holding the belt, meaning the whole thing was for absolutely nothing. Uncensored 98 actually features one of my favourite WCW matches, Raven vs Chris Benoit vs Diamond Dallas Page. It also has a few stinkers because WCW wanted to keep the tradition going, it seems. Earlier in the year, it sold out. Kevin Nash dropped the Giant on his neck with a powerbomb. It was a real scary moment that legitimately took the big man out for a while, but it wasn't so bad that he couldn't come back to the ring and face Kevin Nash in a return match. This one had a lot of potential and it had a fantastic real story heading into it. So what does WCW do? They have Kevin Nash acting the arsehole for a bit. They have the two men lumbering around the ring doing a whole lot of nothing. And when they do get physical, there's absolutely no heat. The Giant should have been out for blood. He should have had the urgency of 2 virgins trying to untangle a brass strap in the back of a Vauxhall Corsa. It should have been a war between the company's 2 largest competitors, but it was given a total of 6 minutes and it ended in disqualification. Brian Adams, got in the ring to hit the Giant with a baseball bat. He did not need to jump that high either, by the way. Conan and Virgil got in the ring too, and these fine gentlemen ended up taking chokeslams. But Nash got away pretty much scot-free while fans were left feeling completely deflated. Kev didn't take a chokeslam, the Giant didn't fall victim to another powerbomb attempt, although, yeah, we can probably understand why. But this really was a Nitro match through and through. It was such a wasted opportunity. The Hollywood Hogan and Randy Savage rivalry that reignited in early 1998 set the wheels in motion for the Wolfpack vs Black and White NWO Civil War. Savage was unhinged, someone who Hogan was having difficulties keeping under control. And so for their steel cage match at Uncensored, Hulk put his leadership of the NWO up for grabs against the Macho Man. If Hulk won, then Savage would fall in line and remember his place in the pecking order. If Macho won, then Hulk would have to obey Savage's commands while acting like a follower. Both men got colour in the match. WCW had a no blood policy, yet they weren't going to fire Macho and Hogan like they fired Dusty Rhodes and Blacktop Bully. So what they did instead was zoom the hard camera way out, and this is how fans at home had to watch the end of the match. I mean, it's not a huge deal or anything, but it is annoying. The disciple appeared just as Randy was about to win the match. He got in the ring, he took the referee out, and he stood in front of Hogan as to block the Macho Man's flying elbow. Savage got down, he stood in the ring against two men, so the Stinger made an appearance to offer Macho some assistance. This was a big surprise, seeing as Macho was still a member of the New World Order, but Sting wanted to help Macho knock Hogan down a few pegs, and how does Macho thank his new friend? He ends up hitting him with a clothesline. So what does this mean for our match, and where do we go from here? Well, Macho walks out of the cage, and do remember that this cage match was pinfall or submission only, classic WCW cage match rules. So effectively, WCW presented a main event steel cage match on a show named Uncensored that ended in a no contest. The cage is supposed to stop people getting in, it's supposed to stop people getting out, and this one featured two men getting inside the cage while one of the competitors just walked away while deciding he didn't want to fight anymore. The mind really does boggle. WCW's in a whole lot of trouble in early 1999 and it's only going to get worse. Did they decide to change things up for Uncensored this year and actually put on a good show? Short answer, no. No, they didn't. We're in Louisville, Kentucky, perfect place for a Harlem street fight, I'm sure you'd agree. And we've got Stevie Ray taking on Vincent for leadership of the NWO Black and White, or NWO B team as they were referred to. This was when the NWO Elite was still ongoing, and while guys like Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash were dealing with the real serious NWO business, the NWO reserves were bickering over who should lead the team, which effectively consisted of lower card rejects. Fighting for the leadership of the NWO Black and White in 1999 is like two rats aggressively biting each other's faces off to determine who gets to be king of the wheelie bin. Stevie Ray is good, but in my opinion, he's better as a tag team wrestler. Vincent, let's be honest, Vincent was always used as the NWO's whipping boy, and he was effectively used to take punishment from babyfaces who opposed the NWO. Why on earth anyone would care about Stevie Ray and Vincent fighting over the leadership of the NWO B team really is beyond me. Taking away all this and looking at the match simply as a pro wrestling street fight, it's still absolutely terrible. They fight in the crowd for a bit just to ensure they get the street fight part of the match taken care of, and it all ends with Horace Hogan running down to put a slapjack in the ring. Horace then says to the camera he doesn't care who wins because he's the real leader of the Black and White. So if he doesn't care who wins, why did he put a weapon in the ring? Throwing a deadly weapon into a ring and then immediately declaring your complete indifference to the outcome is the wrestling equivalent of dropping your trousers, taking a massive shit on your own living room rug, and then turning to your wife to ask who she thinks is going to clean it up. Better yet, the slapjack meant absolutely nothing, because once Vincent got it in his hands, it only took a kick to the gut for him to throw it into the crowd, and Stevie Ray ended up winning the match. No one cared about the outcome. As a matter of fact, ask most wrestling fans to name every leader of the NWO, and I bet only a few will mention Stevie Ray. I don't even know where to begin with this one. Hulk Hogan was the leader of NWO Elite, but clearly he wanted to turn babyface again. His opponent on this night, WCW President Ric Flair, had been teasing a heel turn for weeks, and it was all clearly designed for fans to get behind Hulk, so keep that in mind. Flair tells referee Charles Robinson before this first blood barbed wire steel cage match to use his discretion when it comes to the blood. The referee should not stop the match for a little nick on the arm or whatever, it should only end when someone is truly busted open. So okay, fair enough. There's barbed wire around the top of the cage, there's no way to escape, and as soon as the bell rings, Hogan's wrestling with a lot more enthusiasm and he's wrestling like a babyface. First blood match, ladies and gents, so Hogan slaps on a figure four that gets broken up when Ric Flair reaches the bottom rope. Wrestlers reach the ropes as a way of getting out of bounds and therefore holds must get broken up, but does the same rule really apply inside a barbed wire steel cage? Apparently so. Hogan pulls the barbed wire down, he rubs it in Flair's face. Rick is clearly busted open and so the match is over, right? No. Hogan delivers the leg drop, he covers Slick Rick and the referee refuses the count. Okay, so pinfalls don't count in a first blood match, but at the same time, Robinson didn't ring the bell when Flair got busted open. So tell me, dear viewers, how exactly are you supposed to win this match? The comedy continues when David Flair shows up for no reason at all, because when a blood feud inside a razor-sharp cage of death stalls out, the obvious solution is to send old Rosy Cheeks in to make everything better by default. Double A Arn Anderson takes Dave out before passing a tire iron to the Nature Boy. Hollywood, who's also bleeding right now by the way, gets whacked in the face, and Hulk gets pinned in a first blood match while getting put in the Nature Boy's figure 4 leg lock. Keep in mind that people paid money to watch these shows. Flair vs Hogan, even this late into the game, still got people reaching into their pockets to buy WCW pay-per-views. And this is what they were given. Leads you to believe that the Uncensored 99 main event was written on a napkin using a mix of red, pink and blue crayons. WCW tried to fix it all by turning Charles Robinson heel and aligning him with Ric Flair, but there was nothing smart or witty about the way this was all done. Instead, they made the match as confusing as humanly possible. Terry Funk took on Dustin Rhodes at Uncensored 2000, and it began with Terry's fist lodged right up a chicken's arsehole because apparently Dusty Rhodes is a big old chicken and Dustin's little brother, well, he too is a big old chicken. To prove this point, Dusty's little brother shows up. That's him right there in the chicken suit, and no, before you ask, it wasn't Cody Rhodes in the ring right here. Chicken noises were played for folks in the arena and at home. Funk whacks Dustin with his raw chicken as chicken suit guy gets chased up the rampway. This is supposed to be a bull rope match, but the two just fight without tying the rope to their wrists for a solid 5 minutes or so, and after they do use the rope the way it's intended, they end up taking it off again. It's a mess. It's a total WCW 2000 mess. Chicken Guy shows up once more, only to get knocked out. Terry takes control of the bout, and he then grabs a microphone to announce that this is now an I Quit match. The referee tells Terry that he can't go around changing match stipulations, so Billy Silverman gets knocked out too, yet still Terry Funk loses after taking a pile driver. Raw chickens, chicken suits, a bull rope that wasn't utilised the correct way, and a competitor trying to change the stipulation of the match. What are we doing here, guys? Tell me, what are we doing? It should be noted too that a week prior to this, Dusty Rhodes competed in a bull rope match against Steve Corino at ECW's Living Dangerously 2000 show. Coincidence? I don't think so. The first match at the first Uncensored and the last match at the last Uncensored really do serve as perfect bookends for this terrible run of pay-per-views. We've got the King of the Road match at Uncensored 95 to the Yapapai strap match at Uncensored 2000. It's supposed to be a standard 4-corner strap match, but Hulk Hogan spiced it up by calling it a deadly, dangerous Yapapai strap match. You see, after Ric Flair and Lex Luger beat up Jimmy Hart, Jimmy used his last breath to whisper a word in Hogan's ear, and that word was Yapapai. Us common folk have no fucking idea what this means, but Hogan knew Jimmy was talking about the make-believe Yapapai tribe. Maybe Jimmy meant Yavapai, maybe WCW didn't do their homework, which was highly likely. But Hulk Hogan ran with it, brother, and we got some of the most unhinged and insane promos ever spoken by the real American, and that says a lot. Jimmy Hart was now known as the Strap Master. There was going to be some double strapication at Uncensored. What? Absolute brain-melting stuff, all while Hogan's whipping the floor like a lunatic and WCW watches their numbers continue to dwindle. The match itself, another Flair vs Hogan mess. The announcers tell us over and over again that the only way to win this match is by touching all 4 corners in succession, yet after Flair touches 3, he still goes for a pinfall. After this, Hogan touches 3 corners, he takes care of an interfering Lex Luger, he then drops the big leg on Flair, and he gets a pinfall victory. He also touches corner number 4 to get a second victory? I don't know, but my god. Just when you think they couldn't top the barbed wire cage match, the Yapapai strap match takes the cake. Consider this too, Uncensored 99, featuring the cage match, got an estimated 325,000 pay-per-view buys, a decent number during a dark time in WCW. The following year, for Uncensored 2000, which was also headlined by Hogan and Flair, the company got an estimated 60,000 pay-per-view buys. That's a staggering 80% drop in paying viewers over the span of 1 year. Dig around deep enough and you will find some decent matches at WCW Uncensored shows, but because there's been so many bad matches, it kinda sullies the name for me. If I'm looking for a pay-per-view to watch, or even one to randomly put on in the background while I'm working on the PC, I intentionally dodge the uncensored shows, and it's mainly for reasons mentioned in this video. Way more bad than good here folks, so you've been warned. For some reason, I always like WCW Super Brawl shows, even though I know there's bad matches to be found at those events too. I guess you could take any annual pay-per-view and pick out the bad stuff if you really wanted to, but for me, the uncensored shows sit right at the top when it comes to absurd, incoherent and asinine match bookings. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know if there's an annual wrestling event that you feel produces more bad matches than good. Appreciate you watching this one as always. Have a good one guys, and until next time, please take care.